Hello everybody and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be showing you the ins and outs and a brief tutorial on Sprocket Tank Design. Now, first things first, you're going to want to go down here and click Create a Faction. Now, faction name. So, you just choose the name of your faction, and this is the design name prefix. As you can see, it'll do the words or numbers that you put in here, and then a number. So, if I do br/, it'll give me a preview, br/87. So we're just going to set that, make sure that starter blueprints is on, you want that. Click confirm. Then it'll automatically switch to your new faction. Then click sandbox. So, this will spawn you in a sandbox, don't mind this is just a different design that I made. So, this is your sandbox. You have your tank, you have your HUD, and you can mess around with this. Now, this is just the basic, general designer. It's pretty basic. You just drag the faces. You can figure out how that works on your own. But I'm going to move on quickly, and I'm going to get into freeform later. But next we want to go to mobility. Mobility is where you're going to edit your tracks. You can change where they are. You can use these sliders to edit how thick your tread is, where your sprocket is, how large it is, all that kind of stuff. You can also click that to put the sprocket in the front. Now I'm going to briefly just put that right there. And now my sprocket is in the front. I'm going to lower the belt width so it stays in there. And over here, down here, you can change your sprocket wheel design. There are 3 different ones to choose from. You can change your sprocket mount. Be that or that. You can change your idler wheel, which is this one, to any of these. There are loads of different options. Idler mount. There are this one, and this one. Road wheels. These are your main wheels that will be in contact with the tread that's in contact with the road. There are also loads of different options for these ones. Suspension. I recommend using the torsion bar suspension. It's just overall easier to use. The HVSS suspension is very buggy currently. Return rollers are these little rollers on the top that make sure that your track returns to the other thing. If you go to config over here, you can edit your suspension and your torsion bar. So, now that you've learned that, there are lots of different things. Then you can do grouping, which you can have different groups of wheels. It's pretty basic. I'm going to keep that off. Interleaving, which essentially makes so the wheels overlap like that. We're not going to have that either. And now we have a somewhat basic understanding on how to edit our tracks. If you go over here to track segments, you can choose out of these 4 different types of track segment. I'm going to choose this one. Now, we have a near full, though a bit shallow understanding of how tracks work. I recommend that you explore how these work on your own. Now we're going to go to fenders. Fenders, they're just like these things on the side. You can change where they are, all that stuff. You can change how long the sections are. You can change the offset on the rear. Let me give you a better view of that. The offset on the rear. You can change the scale of the front end. Change the angle of the front end. There are lots of different things that you can do with the tracks. So, well, not tracks, fenders. You can also turn off auto-generate, but I'm going to keep that on. Engine. Now, the engine, I recommend, so the engine you want to build probably the last, it's probably the last thing you want to build, along with the tracks in the, I'd say that the last things that you want to build are the tracks, the engine, the transmission, and maybe the firepower. But we'll get to that later. So if you go to basic, you'll see that there are 3 presets. We have a light engine, which takes up less space, a medium engine, which takes up more space, and a heavy engine, which takes up the most space, though these produce different amounts of power. And this is just a brief explanation of what's going on the top here. This is the name of your tank. This is the save button. This is the, you can open up your blueprints. This is the blueprints button. This is the reset button. This is the faction button. This is just the settings. The era, you can decide what era your tank will be built in. Essentially, late war is probably the easiest. World War I is probably the hardest. Just go to early war for your first design, I recommend. Maybe mid-war. So, you have your different engine types, but then you can go to advanced. Here you can choose how many cylinders you have, how much displacement you have, your upshift, your downshift, your idle, you can see your power preview, and you can see your speed limits. Now, transmission. So, transmissions are a whole other thing. I will probably make an entirely different tutorial on how to make a good transmission. So, naturally, you just want the first gear to overcome rolling resistance, and the last gear to, overcome the initial rolling resistance, and the last gear to just slightly overcome it so you can run it at a higher speed. So, I recommend having your reverse gear be a bit stronger and a bit slower than your drive gears. That's just my tip. Now, we have our chassis. It looks a bit strange, but we have our tracks and our engine, as well as our transmission. Now, I'm just going to click medium for this engine. Powertrain. There are two different types of powertrain. There is twin transmission, which allows turning in place, smooth turn rate, and it maintains the speed in turns. The disadvantages are it requires two transmissions, which takes up more space and is heavier, and it functions poorly with a smaller gear range. So the less gears you have here, the worse that the twin transmission will function. Then we have clutch braking, which uses the lowest amount of space, but it can't turn in place, it slows down on turns, and it doesn't turn very well on slopes. So, twin transmission is the best if you have the space. I'd say it's the best overall. Then you have the fuel tank. This is where you can change the amount of fuel. Honestly, given the game's state currently, you don't really have to put a lot of fuel in here. Just put 700 or 600, it doesn't matter. You can place down external fuel tanks, and you can place down, wait, that was weird. You can place down fuel caps. These control where your fuel tank is. So, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to place these on the sides right here. I'm going to move these back here. So, that's a basic dive into the mobility tab. Now, firepower. But, you may be noticing, I don't know, I can't read your mind, we don't have a turret to place our cannon in. Sure, we could just place it in the hole, but if we want to make a tank that can aim in all directions, we're going to want to make a turret. So, over here in the compartments tab, we want to go back here, you should go and click generated turrets if you're going to be using a generated design. So, my turret, I'm pretty sure looks a bit different than it will normally will, because I screwed it up somehow. But you can change how big you want your turret to be, all that stuff, how you want it to look. And you can build your turret. So, I'm just going to do a basic little turret. It's going to be pretty simple. So, this is my turret for the tank. This, you can use it to move stuff around. I'm gonna make sure that this is centered. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So, we have our turret. Now, we can place our cannon inside of the turret. So, down here, we have the mantlets we can choose from. Certain ones of these mantlets will have something called azimuth. That means that if we place them inside the hole, not a turret, they can still move side to side in a limited range of motion, despite others which can't move side to side at all. So, we're just going to choose this mantlet. Now, you don't have to exactly copy what I'm doing right here. I recommend that you do your own thing while just watching this video to have a alright understanding on how some of this works. So, I'm going to be honest, my tank is not going to look very good. Normally my designs look better. I'm glossing over a lot of things. This is just a tutorial on how to make a basic tank. Now, then, once you go back to the fire, once you've placed your cannon, well, mantlet, you want to go to cannon and you can edit your cannon. This is the caliber. This controls how, large, essentially, your shell is. The propellant length controls, essentially, how fast your shell will be. So, for our caliber, we're going to do 75. Actually, 88. And for our propellant length, we're going to do 450. Now, over here, we'll see the segments tab. I recommend it having 2 segments. So, the first segment is the base. This is usually wide and tapers down slightly to the normal barrel size. Then, we just have the barrel. This is usually much longer, and it usually doesn't taper. It's also often recoiled. So you can grab this to drag out your barrel. Now, you'll see this blue line. And you'll notice that this blue line from the base of the cannon is extending into the tank. This means that the breech of the cannon inside the tank is far heavier than the cannon itself. Wait. Wrong. I got that wrong. I'm sorry. The cannon is much heavier than the breech. A way of remedying this is clicking this plus icon and either adding a counterweight, recessing the cannon, or you can always add more propellant length or a higher caliber. That often works. You normally want to try and have the smallest blue line possible. As you can see right here, it's very, very small. So we have our heavily balanced, so our cannon is extremely balanced. Now, over here you can see your muzzle velocity, penetration, dispersion, bore length, and the base reload time. Then, you go to gun mounts. You don't really, if you're designing your first tank, you don't really need to do much here. This is just controlling how fast the cannon will go up or down, elevate or depress. Now, ammo racks. So, ammo racks, you'll see ammo storage. No racks placed. Select a rack below and place it on the vehicle. So, we want to go down here and grab a rack. Then, we will place it inside of the tank. We can use the tools down here, like the rotate tools, to rotate these racks. We want to make sure that they're not blocked by other racks or that they're outside the vehicle. Normally, you want to have some racks in the turret, some in the hole, but for this example, I'm just going to put them in the turret. So, now that you have your ammunition racks, you can select them and change what type of ammo you have. I'm going to have one rack be APHE, and one rack be armor piercing. Just so you know, armor piercing, high explosive, armor piercing. Armor piercing, high explosive doesn't go through as much armor, but it does more damage. So, now that you have your firepower done, we want to go down to crew. Normally, you don't need to edit this that much. But, if you want, you can add more crew members. Normally, I would suggest making the driver also the radio man, unless you're trying to make a tank that's specifically designed to be fast. In crew, we also have some cosmetic items down here. Now, I'm going to speed up the footage just as I add some cosmetics, just so that this tank doesn't look absolutely garbage. Oh, brief intermission right here. These are the viewports. The gunner viewport, some mantlets actually come with a gunner viewport, like this one. But the gunner viewport, you want to place it on the turret so that your gunner can see. The driver's viewport, you want to place it in the hole so that the driver can see. These other two this viewport also works for the driver, but this viewport, it's just cosmetic. Okay, also, commander cupolas. You need one of these in the turret. You can put it inside the hole, but only maniacs do that. I'm kidding. There are multiple designs that use that. Now, you'll notice right here that this bar has turned red. That is not a good thing. So, you want to go back to compartments and click on this turret. Here, if I can find it, you want to go to ring. Increase the basket space. This will use up space inside the hole, but it will give you more space inside of the turret. Now, back to building. Also, antennas increase your range with the radio man. Brief. I'm just gonna cut in briefly here. Machine guns are purely cosmetic. Okay, also you can use these for extra armor. You can place them on and they offer some extra armor. I'm not going to go into those today, but I might later. So, we've added some cosmetics to our tank, but you may be noticing, where's the engine? Well, if you go back to mobility and go to engine, you'll notice down here we have some cosmetic items. These actually control where the engine is located, but they're mostly used for cosmetics. So, you'll put down an exhaust, you'll place down a few vents. By the way, you can press X to activate mirror mode. You'll place down some vents, and there you have a basic engine. Now that we've done that and added all the customizations, you'll notice that we can go to livery, or livery. I honestly do not know how to pronounce it. Now, there are different camos. This is the plain, just flat color. This, just different types of camo, as you can see. Autumn, snow, desert, custom. Custom, you can add your own. I'll go into that in a different video. Now, over here you can control the hue. This is mostly used for just the plain camo. The condition of the paint, the grime on the paint, of course, the saturation, the brightness, the roughness, just kind of makes it a more matte color, makes it less shiny. Scale only affects these camos. For example, the scale makes it either bigger or smaller, the camo pattern. And metallic makes it shinier. So I'm going to lower the saturation a bit, lower the brightness a bit. We have our little tank. Now I'm also going to change the hue to a nice, sensible tan. You can also add a bit of grime and lower the condition if you wish. Then we have decals. There are a bunch of starter decals over here. There are some flag decals, and you can add your own custom decals. I've already added some of them. I'll go into that in a different video. Now, I'm just going to add a few decals. I'd recommend placing one decal on the turret, one on the front of the hull. That usually just spices it up a little. So, Now we technically have a functional tank, but we have absolutely no armor on it. So, we'll go back to the Apartments tab and select the hull first. Then, click Armor. Here you can edit how much armor is on different parts of the tank. The belly armor increases the armor on the bottom. That's effective against mines and if you're going up a hill, so people can't shoot you out through the belly. The roof is also not used much. It's mostly just used when you're on a hill. Front, you want to put a lot of armor in here. The front is the part that's going to be taking the most fire. Sides, you want to put like a medium amount of armor here. In the rear, you want to put the least amount of armor. Next, though, you want a bit more than the belly and the roof. So now we have some armor. Then we want to click the turret. Over here, you can go back into armor view. Front. The front you usually want to also be pretty high. The cheek are these little side bits. I'm just going to put that at 80. And the roof is going to be 55. The sides are kind of the same, though I recommend overall having a more armored turret than I recommend having your turret more armored than your hull is, because it's going to be rotating around. So, here we have our armored turret. Now that we've added armor, we can click this, and we can save our design. Now, over here, we'll say Blueprint Saved, and you can click this play button. Now, you can actually use your tank. You can aim it around, you can shoot the gun, and you can drive around. Just so you know, pressing the middle mouse click will make it so your cannon and turret can't move if you want to just get a cinematic shot, or you don't feel like using the cannon. But, I forgot where I was going. You can test it against different tanks. Usually it will come with a preset of tanks. So, I just killed that tank. Then, you can press Z. Z is the button to open this window. It can select some different tanks. And bam. So, that is a basic Sprocket tutorial on how to build your first tank. I hope that this helped you. I hope that you found this interesting. If you did, give it a like and subscribe. If not, dislike it. Maybe give me an angry comment. Not like I'm going to read it. But, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.